Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of JD's NASCAR and Sports Podcast. On this episode, we're going to review a awesome Atlanta race and preview New Hampshire and touch on a couple other news tidbits that have dropped since the end of the race on Sunday. And we're looking forward to a pretty awesome short track in New Hampshire. I love watching racing there. So, here we go. Before we get into the on-track stuff, I wanted to take a minute to just say that being there in Atlanta for the race was awesome. Even before the race, all the fanfare and signings. I met a couple drivers there, got autographs, and one of them was Corey LaJoie, and the other one was Kyle Busch, and both of those guys were really nice. And I think Atlanta did a pretty awesome job with having a variety of things you could do before the race, and that was really good to see. Some places you go don't have as much stuff, so I thought the weekend in general was amazing on and off the track. I think I touched on last week that I love the old configuration and the new one. And I think that this was the best Atlanta race that I've seen in person, honestly. Even though it was rain shortened, just all kinds of excitement and a lot of passing. There, when the sun went down, that a couple people jumped to the top line and formed a third line up against the wall and really flew. Went super fast up there. That was cool to see 3 lines at a 1.5-mile super speedway track going. Only complaint that I have about the whole weekend is, these signings that drivers do away from track property, like the track promoted the ones that were on property. But, for example, I feel like that, I saw Denny had a signing around Atlanta, and then Christopher Bell had one around Atlanta, and I looked all week long, and I'm a diehard fan, so I can only imagine that other fans would want to know this too, and they didn't post anything about a meet and greet or anything until the day of. And if you're like me, traveling from out of state, you wish you would know that a little sooner so you could make plans to go. Because I would have loved to go meet Denny again and go meet Christopher Bell again. But that's the one complaint I have. I think NASCAR needs to do a better job. Or even if it's not NASCAR, it's this, the old Charlie's or Coca-Cola Racing in Denny's case should have promoted his event in advance. That's the only complaint I have of the whole weekend. But other than that, had a good one. The race heated up quick. It started as Harrison Burton had a really good qualifying run and was running still top 10 when he spun by himself. Everyone said the track's more treacherous this year, starting to age a little bit, and you could see that. Especially when the race started, and even some in qualifying. I know people had issues. Alex Bowman's really the one that comes to mind that was just fighting a loose car all weekend long. You felt bad for him because his playoff hopes, man, they took a big hit this weekend. But Harrison spinning by himself just shows you that the track wasn't as gripped up as it was as soon as the repave was done. You hardly ever see super speedways people single car spinning. They usually get spun by somebody, or you never see them losing it. So you could tell the track was sketchy early when Harrison spun and hit the wall. After that, no wrecks until at least in the first stage. Ryan Blaney won stage 1. By inches, because Kyle Larson made a heck of a move going into 3 and 4. He just didn't have enough help to clear Blaney. But Larson was on the move early. I was there in person. You would see him moving all over the track, trying to get things going. Just couldn't ever get enough help to go with him. And that was the case at the end of the first stage as well. Probably would have had a stage win if he had just a little more help. But Ryan Blaney edged him out. And after that, after the end of the first stage, I was talking about the third line. It comes into effect. Martin Truex and Eric Jones were the two main ones. Tyler Reddick also. So those are the three main guys that they found that top line, and it was like a rocket ship. I mean, they went to the front and fast. It made their car look so much faster. They would run right up next to the wall, and they made up a lot of ground fast. And I hated it for Martin because, he looked at one point like the fastest car on the track, to be honest with you. And they come in for pit stops, and then he gets spun by McDowell. I think McDowell was exiting his pit as Martin was coming in, or vice versa. And Martin is the one that ended up getting spun. McDowell had damage, but didn't cost him too much track position. Martin, he went all the way to the back after getting spun, and that kind of made him a non-factor in the rest of the race. So I think he ended up finishing towards the back. And also, during that round of pit stops, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Denny Hamlin all pit road penalties. So removing equipment interference, and Denny's pit crew's been better lately. It seems like this one just not very good. Which is super speedway, it don't matter as much. When you get a penalty on pit road, it's just you can make track position up pretty quickly. And we saw that as all three of those guys were back towards the front shortly after this, but they did get penalties. And after, right after the restart, after the pit road mishaps, Corey LaJoie thinks he's clear, spins Byron. I was listening to Corey's podcast, Stacking Pennies, and he said that Byron texted him and said it was kind of his fault for lifting. He was trying to let Chase Elliott in a hole and lifted. Corey thought that he would be fully in the gas and he would have been clear. And Byron ends up spinning. Obviously, not any damage for Willie B, and he regrouped, definitely. But after that little spin, William goes to the back. And after that caution, it says cautions breed cautions. And it seemed like that happened after that Corey and Byron incident, as Kyle Larson spins off of Eric Jones. There's debate on this online I saw. I haven't seen the in-car, so I couldn't tell if Eric Jones hit him to spin him or if Kyle Larson was already loose before he got there. I know on Jones Radio he said that he was already loose before he got there. I think Larson's team disagreed with that, so I would have to see the in-car to know exactly what happened there. But in other words, Larson had been running well all day long, gets spun, no damage. But, after the wreck, it looked like he was trying to nurse it back to pit road. I don't know if because as soon as he spun, he came down pit road. And it looked like they put some tires on it. Maybe it was only left sides that they put on. I think it was only left sides. So he tries to get out to beat the pace car, gets out of the pits, and he's along the apron. And then, before he gets back on the track, his right front just implodes. And takes off the right side of his front of the car. And after that, car wasn't the same. And he made a couple of laps and then took it to the garage. So that's another disappointing end for Kyle Larson and his super speedway races. It seems like he has really bad luck. He's just never been able to put it together on super speedway. So hopefully that ends for him soon. But he ended up finishing last. Now this is the part that, Alex Bowman fighting a loose car all weekend long. In practice, about lost it. Like qualifying, he was loose. And in the same spot as he spun earlier in the weekend, or he didn't spin, but he get loose, and him and Denny were battling. Bowman was under him on the bottom, and he just got loose, chased it all the way up to track, and ended up hitting Denny in the left rear and spun them both out. Bowman actually had a lot more damage than Denny did. I was listening to Denny's team communication there at the track on the scanner, and he said that his wheel was, pretty straight. It was slight. I think he ended up saying he bent a toe link, but nothing that impacted his car significantly. He was able to continue well, but Bowman ended up getting a lot of damage. He had the two right sides to go flat, and that car was pretty much destroyed after his damage from that wreck. And as we were talking earlier, I picked Bowman and Gibbs both to make the playoffs. I have all year. Both of them are out as of now. Going into this race, I felt like they were both in really good shape. And Bowman I think he's minus 26 out, if that number's correct, but it's between 25 and 30, I'm pretty sure. And Ty Gibbs is also out as of now. So I'd like to see. I think those two guys will bounce back, though, especially at New Hampshire. Ty Gibbs with the Toyotas. Toyotas are usually really good there. So I think he'll bounce back, definitely. But for all my Bowman fans, might going to have to win now. After back-to-back really bad finishes for Alex. It looked like he was going to make it pretty easily. They had ran well all year long, and just the last 2 weeks have really hurt him. And then after that caution, the last caution of the night, Bubba Wallace and Ryan Preece tangle and spin. I don't think neither one of them had very much damage. Both of them probably could have continued had the race resumed after that. But as we all know, the weather rolled in, and since the race was past halfway, they called it a pretty large storm. There at the track, let me start off by saying William Byron wins the rain-shortened race at Atlanta, his fourth win of the season. Now, the question is, should NASCAR have went green before the rain got there? They took several pace laps before the rain got there, and here's my thoughts on that. Being there in person, yes, I wanted them to go green. As a fan, you want to be selfish about it. You want them to go green as soon as they can, and I think they would have had a couple of laps to race before the rain got there. But is it really worth it? You think back to last year at Daytona in the summer, and you think of the rain coming and the whole field being collected due to a little bit of rain. And I think after that happened, NASCAR's taking this weather stuff different. They're taking a more solid approach, and I think that played into this. I think that's why they called it before the big rain got there. They didn't want to relive that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say that NASCAR made the right call here in calling it before the rain got too crazy. And, you do not want to risk that. Luckily, nobody was injured in that Daytona wreck, but, you can't say that for everywhere. They could have went green, hit rain, and then somebody could have got hurt, and that's something you never want to see. So I'm going to say that NASCAR made the right call here. And I also want to say, if you want to go see action at a racetrack, if you want to enjoy yourself by just sitting there and watching the NASCARs, man, even the Xfinity race on Saturday, they're moving all over the track, flying, going super fast, and it really is just awesome to see good racing like that in person. So if you want to go to a race, I say next year, since Atlanta has already raced their 2 races this year, go check out Atlanta. It's pretty awesome. I've been there the last 2 years now, and it just keeps getting better, honestly, as the racetrack ages. It's going to start racing more towards like it used to, but which necessarily ain't a bad thing. But I do enjoy seeing these guys struggle, if that makes sense. It's not easy for them when the track is so wild. when it's so sketchy like it is now, when you got to lift in the corners at a super speedway, I mean, it kind of race like the old Daytona is what I've heard from drivers and people that really study the sport. So, you know, it raced like old Daytona did. You had to lift in the corners. You couldn't hold it wide open the whole way. Handling was an issue for guys. And that's really awesome to see. And I'm glad that Atlanta has 2 dates again, and hopefully it stays that way. As I really do enjoy the super speedway package there. And I think that I see nothing wrong with going back there 2 times next year, so hopefully they will. Now, before we get into previewing New Hampshire, I wanted to touch on a couple things. Some new stuff. Corey LaJoie and Spire are finalizing a multi-year extension for Corey to stay and drive the 7 car. You know, I'm glad for Corey. Glad he got that extension, but at the same time, would like to see him in a better ride. I know that Spire has made a lot of improvements, and you can see that with Corey's performance. I think Corey's improved as a driver, especially as a road course driver. I wish he would have ran better in Atlanta, but I think he still had a solid season. And, you know, he's got Daytona at the end of the regular season to go out there and win. And I don't see why he couldn't do it. I think that he's a really good super speedway racer. And if that team could get in the playoffs, that would be something. That would be crazy. That would be awesome for him. And so multi-year extension. So I think he will remain in the 7 car for a while. You know, if anything were to open up unexpectedly, I think he would be the top name for several organizations, to be honest with you. That's just my opinion. But as of now, he's going to stay in the 7, and I'm looking forward to see Corey continue on with his career and hopefully get a win or 2. Now, the second piece of news, and this one's actually pretty big sponsorship-wise, I wanted to touch on. Anheuser-Busch is moving to the 1 car of Ross Chastain and Trackhouse next season once Kevin Harvick retires. This was the worst kept secret in the garage. This rumor's been going around for a while. But still wild to see, to be honest with you, that they would leave Stewart-Haas and Josh Berry for Ross and Trackhouse. I think that they feel like Ross has a big enough following to help sales and continue the tradition of Anheuser-Busch in NASCAR and get them into victory lane. I guess they think he has a better chance than Josh Berry does, which, I mean, Stewart-Haas has struggled all year. I think, you know, I don't see them improving anytime soon, to be honest with you. So I honestly think this is probably a good move. Now, at the same time, since Busch is Harvick's main sponsor, I'm anxious to see if Josh Berry brings over Bass Pro Shops for the 3rd Bass Pro Shops car in the NASCAR Cup Series. You already got Austin Dillon and Martin Truex, or, you know, does Josh Berry bring over someone else? You know, he's a Dale Jr. guy. I don't know how much Dale Jr. can do sponsorship wise with him moving into Harvick's or Stewart-Haas's organization, but I guess we will see, and that'll be interesting. To see who Josh Berry lands as his main sponsor. So I guess we'll see some pretty cool Busch designs. They always have cool Harvick cars, so I'll be anxious to see what they do with Ross's cars that they sponsor. And speaking of sponsors, Denny has a new sponsor this week, Mavis Tires and Brakes. He's actually going to have it for the next 5 weeks, which I just saw that FedEx signed an extension next year, but I think it's only for 10 races or somewhere along that line. And you worry that after next year, FedEx will be gone from the sport. But, you know, I like the scheme. I saw a lot of people hating it just because it's Denny. I like the new scheme. It's kind of light blue and yellow and black. I'm all for it. I've loved every paint scheme Denny's drove this year, especially that Coke car. Oh, my gosh. Seen that in person. Posted some pictures on the podcast Facebook page. That thing was shining the whole night. You'd go down the back stretch, and it would just reflect off of everything down the back stretch. It was awesome to see. And it got a 14th place finish this week. Wish he would have got a top 10 or so, but I think he keeps driving that car. He's bound to win in it. It's that nice. So hopefully every year at Atlanta that Denny races he'll get to. And speaking of Denny, SRX series tonight, folks. I think that's going to be awesome to watch. Harvick is in it. Tony Stewart, of course, is in it. It's his series, but they're at Stafford this week. Thursday Night Thunder on ESPN. I know that's a NASCAR podcast, but when you got NASCAR drivers going over to drive in the SRX series, I think it's worth mentioning, and I'm super excited to watch Denny drive. I hope he gets a win. He's a short track guy, grew up on the short track, so we'll see how his car drives and see if he can get to the front and stay there, hopefully. So SRX series tonight at 9 from Stafford, and go Denny. As always on this podcast, you all know that. And now on to the preview of New Hampshire. On to New Hampshire. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I enjoy the short track racing of New Hampshire. I remember Brad Keselowski and Denny had a good battle there a couple years ago. And, of course, Denny and Harvick had a last lap battle. Harvick ended up prevailing. I think, with this next-gen car, I think it'll be – I don't know if it'll be as good as it was with the Gen 6. Last year's New Hampshire race really doesn't jump out to me that much. Because, it's Christopher Bell's place. He dominates there. I think he had one bad finish there all time, and it was his rookie year. It's Christopher Bell's playground pretty much. You're gonna have to beat him. You're gonna have to go through him to win this race, and I'm not sure if anybody else can do that, to be honest with you. So my team to beat is going to be Joe Gibbs Racing, the Toyotas. I think they're always strong in New Hampshire for some reason. I don't know why. They have figured out something significant about New Hampshire. And I think it's just going to be hard to beat a Toyota this week. That's just my opinion. And, short tracks really weren't that kind of them last year, to be honest with you. Denny won at Richmond, but it was due to pit strategy. Seabell won this race, and New Hampshire's kind of different than other short tracks. But nothing jumps off the page at me that Toyotas were good at short tracks last year, but driver that I think is going to win the race, and I just touched on it. I think you're going to have to go through Christopher Bell, unless he has a mechanical issue or something like that. I will say another name to watch is Martin Truex Jr. And those are my two main ones. I'm going to say Christopher Bell gets the win, his second of the year, other than Bristol Dirt. I know that's chalky, as you'd say. I'm sure he'll be the favorite to win this race, but I just think he's so good here. Even Xfinity cars, Cup cars, next-gen cars, he's really good here. So I'm going to take Christopher Bell and Joe Gibbs as my team to beat and driver to beat this week. And now we are on to the question of the week segment, and this one comes from a day one listener. This is they sent me a message through my Facebook page, which is if you all want to do that and have conversations with me, I'm all for that. That's really fun to do and talk about NASCAR and all kinds of stuff. And this one was, what track is gone from NASCAR now that you would like to see them bring back? I've thought about this one. This is a good question, and honestly a hard question. But honestly, I don't know how much work would need to go into it. I know it's on iRacing, and it looks really fun to drive, and that is the Rockingham Speedway. It's unique. It's a mile. It's really unique. It kind of looks like it would drive similar to a mile and a half, but different at the same time. It's a really wild, unique track, and I think to bring that back to NASCAR would be something. I think it would race good with this next-gen car. it's been on the schedule. I think they stopped in the late 90s maybe early 2000s was the last race there. Because I remember Dale Jr. always talking about how he struggled there. And he raced in the late 2000s. But Rockingham is my answer. And hopefully it'll get brought back soon. I know there's rumors of it coming back in the next couple years. I think they had to do renovations and stuff to it, but that would be awesome to see. And, I'm still on board with the Nashville Street Course as well. I know that's never been in NASCAR, but it was in IndyCar. I think that would be a cool wrinkle to see that as well thrown in. And there's also rumors about, next year NASCAR going to Montreal for a road course race. They race Xfinity cars there probably 10 or so years ago, but I don't think NASCAR Cup Series has ever been there. But I think moving NASCAR across the U.S. is definitely a possibility based on what I've read and saw. So be prepared for Montreal to be on the schedule either next year or the year after. Since we're talking about new tracks, that's a little scoop, which if you read anything about NASCAR or follow people, that is a rumor going around the garage right now. So I just want to say thank you all for listening. I continue to do this because it's really fun for me to talk about NASCAR. I met some new fans to the podcast in Atlanta, introduced them to the pod, and they subscribed and listened. So if you are part of that new fans group, I want to just say thank you for giving this a shot. And hopefully I retain you as a listener. And if you all want to like on Facebook and subscribe and rate and review, I would definitely appreciate it. And if you all want T-shirts, we make custom T-shirts, $19.99 each. They're black and have the logo on the front and the back, and they're really nice. So just get with me for those. And thank you all so much for listening. And until next week, this has been JD's NASCAR Sports Podcast. I love you all, and thank you for the support.